The reasons that your business can't open a bank account, they're not some closely guarded secret. In most cases, it stems from one of 7 problems that most people completely overlook. And I'm going to share these problems and a few suggestions on how to address them in this video. But first, if we haven't met before, my name is Chris. I'm the head of banking relationships at GlobalBanks. We help entrepreneurs and investors solve cross-border banking challenges, including opening accounts for their businesses. And after helping thousands of businesses navigate banking, we've seen every problem imaginable. So in this video, I'm going to share the 7 biggest problems that business owners are constantly making that result in rejected applications. Now, mistake number 1 is being involved in an industry that is too high risk for the bank. And just to be clear, I'm talking about financial risk, increased likelihood of fraud and scams, links to money laundering, etc., etc. These are the kind of risks that banks are looking out for, and they're the kind of risks that they don't want to have associated with their customers. Examples here include cryptocurrencies, forex brokerages, online gambling, in-person gambling, e-gaming, even licensed financial activities, especially if the licensing jurisdiction is a bit more exotic, less credible. Now, if you're operating in these industries, it doesn't mean that you can't open a bank account. It just means that you really need to make sure you apply to the right bank, because the vast majority of banks, think 99%, they're not going to be interested in banking your company. So you have to choose a bank that supports your industry. Of course, you also need to choose a bank that supports your specific business activities, and that's the next issue that we're going to cover. Your business activities being too high risk for the bank. And yes, industry and business activities are separate. For example, you can be involved in a high-risk industry, say the crypto space, but maybe you're providing consulting services on how to launch tokens or NFTs. So you're not actually launching anything. You're not taking on investor money. You are providing a service. So in the eyes of a bank, you're going to be a lot lower risk than a project that is actually issuing tokens. Now, obviously, if you're still involved in the crypto space, you'll still need to find a bank that's willing to support your business. But the point is, different activities can be marked as higher or lower risk, even in the same industry. So before applying for an account, think through your activities, how best to describe them, and whether the banks you're approaching are actually going to be a good fit. Now, one of the most common mistakes that we see business owners making is choosing the wrong country of incorporation for their company. We've talked about countries of incorporation from a banking perspective before, both the best places to register and the worst. But when I say choosing the wrong country, what I really mean is you selected a country with one of the following problems. First, the country is blacklisted or even graylisted by governments or quasi-government agencies like FATF, or even directly blacklisted by banks and other financial institutions. And if that happens, your company is going to struggle to open bank accounts. Second, the country might be extremely obscure, rarely used from a structuring perspective, and basically bankers have never been asked to onboard that structure before. While this might not seem like a big deal, if you approach a bank with a company that they've never heard of, it will raise a lot of questions and likely require additional compliance work that the banker probably doesn't want to do. And third, the country may have a very poor reputation in the banking world, whether due to real concerns or just perceived risk, which can still severely limit your banking options. Now, if you don't need a bank account for your company, say you're just holding IP or other assets, then this isn't really relevant. But if you need that company to open a bank account, and you choose a country of incorporation with extremely limited banking options, you should be prepared to make a considerable deposit. That way, you can make sure you're profitable from the bank's perspective. Now, the next mistake that business owners make, it's all about transactions. And it's that they want to open and operate an account as a pass-through account or transactional account. Basically, the business owner wants to open a bank account, and each month they plan on receiving, say, $500,000 into that account. And then in the same month, they plan on withdrawing or transferring out $500,000 from that same account. Well, the bank isn't going to like that, and there's a few reasons for this. First, because it's usually unprofitable for the bank, though this can depend on the fee structure. And second, because it's high risk from a compliance perspective, especially if other countries are involved, requiring the bank to closely monitor the accounts and the parties that you're transacting with. Now, no surprise, all of this monitoring, it costs more money, and it makes these sorts of accounts less attractive to the bank. Plus, banks want customers with growing balances, or at least customers who use the bank's products and services. So if you want to open an account, think about whether you're going to be profitable for the bank, or will you just be a burden for their compliance team because of all your transaction activity? Now, staying on the topic of transactions, the next mistake that we see business owners make, even really sophisticated business owners who should know better, is sending money to and from highly restricted countries. This was a huge topic of discussion during the Mercury account closures. US businesses with owners residing in the US were having their accounts closed with only a few weeks' notice to find another bank. Basically, these businesses either had a shareholder from a prohibited country, were accessing the account from a prohibited country, had a verified address in a prohibited country, or they were sending and receiving transfers to and from countries on the prohibited list. Now, the tough thing about this is that every bank and financial institution is going to have their own list of prohibited countries. In fact, we helped many of the businesses who were shut down by Mercury open bank accounts 100% remotely with other major US banks, because those banks didn't have their particular country on the prohibited list. But even then, we still caution business owners about sending and receiving transfers to and from high-risk countries, especially any countries that may be considered conflict zones in the eyes of the banking community. Think Ukraine. And the reason that this is so important is that the new banks might also take issue with transfers to and from these countries. So if you want to keep your new accounts open, take the necessary steps and make sure you're not sending money anywhere that your bank isn't going to like. Now, our last transaction-related mistake is sending money to and from high-risk parties. What I'm saying is it's not just about country risk. It's also about the specific individuals or companies that you're sending money to or from as well. And today, a lot of banks will ask you for a list of the parties that you plan on transacting with during the account opening process. The bank then reviews the details of these transacting parties in a similar way that they're going to dig into your own company during account opening. And they do this to make sure that they're comfortable with supporting transactions to and from these groups. And now the final issue, or rather mistake, that we see business owners making is that they have totally unrealistic expectations. And this is not a joke. We've had business owners from all over the world and in basically every industry contact us and ask if we can help them solve all kinds of banking problems. And a lot of the time, the answer is yes. But every now and then, we come across a business that ticks off all the boxes that we just went through in terms of risk. All of those high-risk activities, the mistakes, and reasons that banks won't want them as a customer. And the shocking thing is that those owners, they expect to open bank accounts in onshore banking hubs with reputable banks and minimal deposits, and to transact freely with no consideration for compliance. And they usually want to open those accounts urgently from their home country. It's not going to happen. If you're running a high-risk business, you have to choose the right banks. If you're engaged in high-risk activities, you need to choose the right banks. If your company is registered in an offshore jurisdiction, you guessed it, you have to choose the right banks. And each of these are just layers of risk from the bank's perspective. And as you add new layers of risk to your business, the available number of banks, it starts to shrink considerably. And that's why, to make sure you don't waste an insane amount of time, energy, and even money trying to find and open the right accounts, it's better to have someone do all the heavy lifting for you. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go to globalbanks.com/insider, fill out an application, and our team will tell you whether you qualify for our account opening services or not. In the meantime, if you would like to learn more about business banking, here's a recent video that I did on the best places to register your company from a banking perspective. And if you were impacted by the Mercury closures, this video right here will walk you through your account opening options, including both in-person and remote, for businesses with foreign owners either living in or outside of the US. So choose which video is best for you, and I'll see you over there right now.